Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. So, my husband, Eric, 31 male, and I, Victoria, 29 female, have been trying to have a baby for years. Years of fertility treatments, doctor's appointments, and a whole lot of emotional ups and downs. It hasn't been easy, but we finally got the news we've been waiting for. About 4 months ago, I found out that I'm pregnant. We were over the moon, and to celebrate, my best friend threw me the most amazing baby shower. It was supposed to be this perfect happy day where I could just relax and enjoy the moment with my friends and family. Enter my sister-in-law. Let's call her Sarah, 25 female. Sarah is a lot. She's always been the kind of person who needs to be the center of attention. If someone has good news, she somehow finds a way to make it about her. But honestly, I didn't think much of it because I was just so excited about my baby shower. I figured even if she tried to steal the spotlight, it wouldn't work because everyone was there to celebrate me and my little one. I was really wrong. So, we're all sitting around opening gifts, laughing, and having a good time. Then, out of nowhere, Sarah stands up and clinks her glass like she's about to make a toast. At first, I thought, oh, how sweet. She's going to say something nice. But nope. She starts off by saying how happy she is for me and my husband, and then she announces that she's pregnant too, and she's having twins. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy for her. Twins are a huge deal, and I know how exciting that must be. But the way she announced it was just so over the top. She made this big dramatic speech about how she's been keeping it a secret for weeks, but couldn't hold it in any longer because she just had to share her joy with everyone. And then she said something that made my jaw drop. She said, and to make it even more special, we've decided to name the twins after Victoria and Eric. It's going to be such a sweet tribute to your seemingly boring marriage and make you guys look like siblings. Naming her kids after us, that's just weird. Like really weird. I don't know if she thought it was some kind of compliment, but it just came off as super awkward and inappropriate. So, after the initial shock wore off, I pulled her aside and tried to talk to her about it. I said, Sarah, I'm really happy for you, but naming your kids after us is not a great idea. It's going to be confusing for everyone, and honestly, it's just kind of strange. She did not take that well. She immediately got defensive and started saying things like, I can't believe you're being so negative about this. I thought you'd be flattered. It's a tribute to you guys. I tried to explain that it wasn't about being negative. It was about setting boundaries and making sure things didn't get too complicated. But she just wouldn't listen. Instead, she started telling everyone at the baby shower that I was jealous of her big news and that I was projecting my infertility insecurities onto her. That really hurt. My infertility journey has been one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And for her to throw that in my face, that was just cruel. It felt like she was using my struggles to make herself look like the victim. And now she's been going around telling everyone the same thing. That I'm jealous, that I'm insecure, that I'm trying to ruin her moment. It's gotten to the point where some people in the family are actually taking her side, saying things like, oh, she's just excited. You should be happy for her. Or maybe you're overreacting a little. But here's the thing. I'm happy for her. I'm thrilled that she's having twins. And I would never want to take away from her joy. But that doesn't mean I have to be okay with her naming her kids after me and my husband. That's a huge decision, and it affects us too. It's not just about her. It's about how it's going to impact our family dynamic moving forward. And honestly, the whole seemingly boring marriage comment still stings. Like, why would she even say that? It feels like she's trying to undermine my relationship and make it seem like hers is somehow better or more exciting. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But this whole situation has just left me feeling really frustrated and hurt. I wanted my baby shower to be a happy, stress-free day, and instead it turned into a huge drama. And now I'm stuck dealing with the fallout while trying to focus on my own pregnancy. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm overreacting? Not the a-hole. Sarah didn't just share her excitement. She weaponized OP's infertility to steal the spotlight on a day that was supposed to celebrate OP, someone who fought tooth and nail to get here. Announcing a twin pregnancy at OP's baby shower is already outrageous, but then naming them after OP and her husband? That's not sentimental. That's territorial and creepy. And calling OP's marriage boring while insisting on copying OP's names? That's jealousy, plain and simple. She wanted to make OP's big moment about herself, and when OP didn't clap like a trained seal, she spun a victim narrative. Classic attention-seeker behavior. And now let's hear community's opinion. Absolutely not the a-hole. People like Sarah don't celebrate others, they compete with them. She saw your joy and immediately thought, how do I make this about me? The moment you set a reasonable boundary, please don't name your babies after us. She flipped into attack mode because she only wants admiration, not opinions. That's why she painted you as jealous. It protects her ego and gets her sympathy points. Her behavior isn't excitement, it's narcissistic theatrics. You handled it way better than most would. Not the a-hole. Sarah's behavior is deeply inappropriate and, frankly, off-putting. Naming one baby after someone without permission is weird enough. It would make you all look like siblings. It would be confusing. And the fact she got offended when you gently said no shows she wasn't honoring you. She was trying to bind you into her narrative, and dragging your infertility into it was downright cruel. She crossed about 20 lines. Update 1. Hey everyone, it's me again. I didn't think I'd be back with an update so soon, but wow, things have taken some wild turns since my last post. I'm still processing everything, but I figured I'd share what's been happening because, honestly, I need some advice and maybe a little moral support. After the baby shower, I tried to keep my distance from Sarah. I figured if I didn't engage, she'd eventually drop it. But nope, she doubled down. She started posting on social media about how some people can't handle her good news and how she's so blessed to be having twins. She didn't name me directly, but it was pretty obvious who she was talking about. Then she started texting me. At first, it was just little things like, "Hey, I hope you have given this some more thought." I didn't respond because honestly, I didn't know what to say. But then the text got more passive-aggressive. Stuff like, "I hope you're not still upset about the names. It's really not that big of a deal." Finally, I snapped and texted her back. "Sarah, I've already told you how I feel about this. Please respect my boundaries." Her response was, "Wow, I didn't realize you were so sensitive. I guess I'll just stop trying to include you in my pregnancy journey." I couldn't believe it. She was acting like I was the one causing problems, when all I did was ask her not to name her kids after me and my husband. Things came to a head last week when my mother-in-law, Angela, 58 female, called a family meeting to clear the air. Apparently, Sarah had been complaining to her about how I was ruining her pregnancy experience, and mother-in-law thought it would be a good idea for everyone to sit down and talk it out. I was hesitant, but my husband thought it might help. So, we went over to mother-in-law's house, and it was awkward. Sarah started off by saying how hurt she was that I wasn't supportive of her pregnancy. She said she thought naming the twins after us would be a beautiful way to honor our family, and she couldn't understand why I was being so negative about it. I tried to explain again that it wasn't about being negative. It was about setting boundaries. I said, "Sarah, I'm happy for you, but naming your kids after us is going to create confusion and make things weird for everyone. It's not personal. It's just not a good idea." But she wasn't having it. She started crying and said, "I just wanted to do something special for you guys, and now you're making me feel like a terrible person." At that point, my mother-in-law jumped in and said, "Maybe we can compromise. What if Sarah uses your names as middle names instead?" I was about to respond when my husband finally spoke up. He said, "Mom, Sarah, this isn't about compromise. It's about respecting our wishes. We've made it clear that we're not comfortable with this, and that should be the end of it." Sarah looked like she'd been slapped. She said, "I can't believe you're taking her side over your own sister." And then my husband said, "Sarah, this isn't about sides. It's about boundaries. And if you can't respect ours, then maybe we need to take a step back from this relationship." Sarah stormed out, and mother-in-law looked like she was about to cry. It was a mess. Since the family meeting, things have been tense. Sarah hasn't spoken to me or my husband, and she's been posting cryptic things on social media, like, Sometimes family hurts you the most, and not everyone will understand your heart. Meanwhile, some family members have reached out to me, saying things like, "You know how Sarah is. Just let her have this," or "Can't you just be the bigger person?" I have been the bigger person. I've tried to be understanding and patient, but it feels like no matter what I do, Sarah twists it to make herself the victim. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's me again. And wow, things have gotten even messier since my last update. I honestly didn't expect this situation to keep escalating. But here we are. So, after the whole baby shower fiasco and the awkward family meeting, I figured things would die down. Sarah stormed out that day, and I thought she just needed some time to cool off. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Instead of calming down, Sarah started ramping things up. The passive-aggressive posts on social media kept coming. It was always cryptic stuff like, "It's funny how some people can't handle good news," or "Jealousy is such an ugly trait." I tried to ignore it because I knew engaging with her would only make things worse. But then she did something I didn't expect. She sent out a mass text to our extended family announcing the twins' names, Eric Jr. and Victoria Rose. I was floored. After everything we had told her, she still went ahead and publicly claimed those names. Eric and I were both stunned. I wasn't sure what to do at first. Part of me wanted to just let it go, but another part of me knew this would cause so much confusion, especially since we were all part of the same family circle. Imagine us all gathering for holidays with 2 Erics and 2 Victorias. It was just weird, and it felt like a deliberate power move on her part. Sarah's husband, James, 28 male, had no idea that we had asked her not to use our names. I had always assumed he was in on this whole thing, but apparently Sarah had only told him that we were honored by the name choice. She never mentioned our objections, or that there had been drama about it. I found this out completely by accident. James called Eric one evening to ask about something unrelated, and in passing he said something like, "I think it's so sweet that you guys are so touched about the names." Eric was silent for a second, and then said, "Wait, you think we're okay with this?" That was when the floodgates opened. James was absolutely mortified. He had no idea there was any tension. And when Eric told him the full story, he was furious. Apparently, James and Sarah had already been having some issues because Sarah kept making decisions without consulting him. This was the final straw. James told Eric that he was going to have a serious talk with her that night. I honestly didn't expect much to change since Sarah is Sarah, but I underestimated James. The next day, I got a text from Sarah. It was short and cold. "Hope you're happy. The names are changing. Congratulations on getting your way." No apology. No acknowledgement of how inappropriate her behavior had been. Just pure bitterness. I didn't reply because I knew anything I said would just feed the fire. But later that day, mother-in-law called me in tears. Apparently, Sarah had gone over to her house right after her fight with James and had spent hours crying and ranting about how I was controlling, jealous, and trying to ruin her special moment. Mother-in-law kept saying things like, "You know how sensitive Sarah is, and I really wish you two could just get along." I told mother-in-law that I'd tried to be civil. I reminded her that I never told Sarah she couldn't be excited about her twins. I only asked that she not use our names. Mother-in-law was sympathetic, but I could tell she still thought I should just let it go. Meanwhile, Sarah's tantrum didn't stop there. She went back to social media and made a lengthy post about toxic family members who go out of their way to steal your joy. She never mentioned me by name, but the comments made it pretty clear who she was talking about. Friends of hers were chiming in with comments like, "Don't let the haters win," and "Your babies deserve those names, no matter what anyone says." Social media is her favorite weapon to use against me. I kept my mouth shut because I knew dragging this out publicly would only make things worse. But Sarah kept pushing. The final straw came when she sent me a nasty text saying, "I hope you realize my kids will grow up knowing exactly what kind of person you are." That one hurt. I was already stressed with my own pregnancy, and this felt like a low blow. Eric saw how upset I was and decided enough was enough. He called James directly and asked him to get Sarah to back off. To his credit, James stepped in again. This time, he made Sarah delete the social media post and told her to stop contacting me altogether. Since then, Sarah has gone radio silent. No texts, no calls, No cryptic social media posts. Part of me feels relieved, but another part of me knows she's just stewing. I know this isn't over, but for now, I'm grateful for the quiet. James reached out privately a few days ago to apologize again. He said he'd had no idea Sarah had been behaving this way, and he was embarrassed by her actions. He promised that he would do his best to make sure things didn't escalate further. Honestly, I felt bad for him. He seemed genuinely overwhelmed and was clearly caught in the middle. For now, I'm just grateful that Eric has been so supportive through all of this. He's been my rock, and I don't know how I would have gotten through this without him. I know some people in the family still think I should have just let her have it, but I stand by my decision. Setting boundaries isn't always easy, but it's important. If Sarah can't respect that, then that's on her, not me. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me through this whole mess. Hopefully, there will be no more updates. Fingers crossed. Update 3. After everything that happened, I really thought we were done with the drama. Sarah had finally agreed to change the names after her husband, James, stepped in. At first, I felt relieved. Eric and I had spent so much time arguing with her, explaining why naming her twins after us felt weird and uncomfortable. It had been exhausting, and I was just glad James seemed to understand. But then, not even 2 weeks later, Eric showed me a text from James. Sarah had changed the names to Erica and Victor. I didn't know what to think at first. I just sort of stared at my phone, as if I looked long enough, the names would change. They didn't. I get that they're technically different, but it was so obvious what she was doing. It wasn't even subtle. Erica and Victor weren't our names exactly, but they were close enough that no one could miss the connection. After all the arguing, she still managed to get her way, just barely tweaking things enough that she could claim she'd compromised. James was upset too. Apparently, he'd assumed they were picking something completely unrelated. He'd spent hours trying to convince Sarah to choose new names, and she acted like she'd agreed. Then, when it came time to make things official, she picked Erica and Victor behind his back. I don't know why she's so determined to make her kids' names about us. Maybe it's control. Maybe it's some twisted way of winning. Whatever the reason, I was tired. I didn't want to fight anymore. I told Eric that we should just let it go. The names were different enough that confronting her again would just make us look petty. Eric agreed. But Sarah wasn't done. Last Sunday, when we went to Eric's parents' house, she went out of her way to talk about her babies in a way that felt calculated. She'd casually mention Erica and Victor over and over again, glancing in my direction like she was daring me to react. "Oh, Erica has such a big personality already," she'd say, practically smiling at me. "Victor's been so fussy this week. Maybe he'll grow up to be dramatic like his Aunt Victoria." She knew exactly what she was doing. The part that really got under my skin, though, was the way she twisted the story when talking to other people. Suddenly, she was the one being praised for being mature, as if picking those names was some thoughtful compromise instead of a passive-aggressive power move. Well, it is annoying, but I guess I can live with it. But honestly, I don't want to interact with Sarah anymore. It stresses me out, and I don't want to deal with any more of it, especially while I'm pregnant. Update 4. Hi everyone. I have a few updates for you. The weeks leading up to my due date had been surprisingly quiet. Sarah mostly kept her distance. I went into labor 2 weeks early. Everything happened so fast. One moment I was sitting on the couch timing contractions, and the next I was being wheeled into a delivery room. Eric barely had time to call our families before I was pushing. Our son was born healthy and perfect. The moment they placed him in my arms, I forgot about all the stress. Nothing else mattered. I just kept staring at him in awe that this tiny person was ours. The first few hours were a blur. Eric texted some family members while I rested, and we agreed to hold off on visitors until I felt more settled. I assumed that meant we'd have a peaceful evening with just the three of us. I should have known better. A few hours later, one of the nurses came in and mentioned that my sister-in-law was in the waiting area. At first, I thought she meant Scarlett, Eric's other sister. But no, it was Sarah. Apparently, she'd driven straight to the hospital after hearing from Eric's mom. She hadn't called. She hadn't asked. She just showed up. I was already exhausted, but hearing Sarah was outside spiked my stress levels all over again. I told the nurse we weren't ready for visitors yet. I figured that was the end of it. But not even 10 minutes later, Sarah was texting me. Her first message was all sunshine and sweetness. "Hey, heard the great news. Can't wait to meet my new nephew." I didn't respond. A few minutes later, she texted me again. "I'm in the lobby just waiting for someone to grab me. Let me know when I can come in." I told Eric, and we both agreed that we are not letting her in. We weren't letting her just barge in during such a vulnerable moment. Eric texted her back, saying we weren't ready for visitors yet, and that we'd let her know when it was a good time. That didn't go over well. Sarah's messages shifted from cheerful to passive-aggressive almost immediately. "Wow, I can't believe you're actually keeping me from meeting him after everything I've done for this family." I didn't even know what she meant by that. Everything she's done for this family, like trying to name her twins after us to make some weird point. We ignored her, figuring she'd leave eventually, but she didn't. Instead, Sarah started texting Eric's mom, who called Eric and tried to play mediator. She said Sarah was just excited and that it was mean to make her wait. Eric told her we weren't budging, which made Sarah even angrier. Not long after that, a nurse came back in looking awkward and uncomfortable. Apparently, Sarah had asked to speak with hospital staff, claiming she deserved to see her nephew and that we were being unfair. I was floored. Who does that? Who storms into a hospital demanding to see a newborn like it's their right? Thankfully, the nurse told her no. Hospital policy was that no one could visit without our consent. Sarah left soon after, but she didn't go quietly. As she walked out, she made sure to tell the staff that I was being spiteful and keeping family apart. I tried not to let it bother me. I had a newborn to focus on, a beautiful baby boy who needed my love and attention, not my stress. But Sarah couldn't leave it alone. She texted Eric again a few days later, saying she couldn't believe we were punishing her just because she wanted to be part of my son's life. Eric tried to calmly explain that this wasn't some punishment. We were just setting boundaries and wanted time to bond with our baby before opening the floodgates for visitors. Of course, Sarah twisted that too. Suddenly, she was the victim again, crying to anyone who would listen about how we were icing her out. She told people I was bitter because of her twins' names, as if that had anything to do with it. Some family members believed her. I had relatives messaging me with comments like, "She just wants to be part of his life, and can't you just let this go?" After everything Sarah pulled, the weird baby name stunt, the social media jabs, and now trying to pressure hospital staff, I was supposed to just smile and invite her over like nothing happened. Eventually, Eric called her directly. He told her she'd get to meet my son when we were ready, but only if she stopped pushing boundaries. He made it clear that we weren't tolerating her manipulative tactics anymore. Sarah didn't take it well. She cried, of course, and claimed she was just misunderstood. She said she was trying to fix things between us, but all she'd done was make things worse. It's been a few weeks now, and she's still barely speaking to us. I know she's been venting to mutual family members, trying to spin the story her way, but I honestly don't care anymore. Eric and I are focused on our son, and that's what matters. Update 5. I honestly thought things were over after the last incident. Sarah had already caused so much stress. Eric and I had drawn firm boundaries, and for a while, it seemed like maybe Sarah had finally accepted them. She wasn't reaching out directly anymore, and the passive-aggressive social media posts had stopped. I figured she was just venting to some relatives, but as long as she left us alone, I was willing to let it go. For a few weeks, things were peaceful. Eric went back to work, and I was getting into a better rhythm with our son. One afternoon, I decided to make a quick grocery run. Caleb was fast asleep in his carrier. My mom was at the house to look after him, and I just needed a few things. I was in the formula aisle when I heard a voice behind me. It was Sarah. I didn't even have to turn around to know it was her, and my stomach immediately sank. I hadn't seen her since the hospital incident, and I really didn't want a confrontation. I kept my head down and hoped she'd just walk past. Of course, she didn't. She started off snide, making a passive-aggressive comment about how convenient it was that I was finally out in public. Before I could respond, she launched into a speech about how I was destroying the family, keeping my son away from her, and turning people against her. I barely got a word in before she started accusing me of being manipulative, selfish, and heartless. I tried to walk away, but she followed me down the aisle, blocking my path. She claimed I was stressing her out and that her doctor had told her she had to stay calm for the twins' sake. According to her, I was making that impossible by tearing the family apart and turning everyone against her. At that point, I just wanted to leave. I tried to walk away again, but she stepped closer and kept going, blaming me for her sleepless nights and insisting that I was the reason her life was so chaotic. She kept saying that she couldn't focus on her twins because I was making things so stressful for her. It was like she thought her pregnancy gave her a free pass to dump everything on me. I didn't say much. I was too stunned, and honestly, I knew there was no point. I just kept walking. She called after me a few more times, but I didn't stop. I was practically shaking when I got back to my car. My hands were trembling so badly that I knew I couldn't safely drive. I felt completely overwhelmed. I sat in the driver's seat for a while, trying to calm myself down. But every time I replayed what had just happened, my heart started racing all over again. Eventually, I gave up, locked the car, and called a cab. I felt ridiculous leaving my car in the parking lot, but I just couldn't handle driving in that state. When I got home, I told Eric everything. He didn't say much at first. Then he grabbed his phone and called Sarah directly. I don't know everything he said, but I could hear bits and pieces of the conversation. He told her that cornering me in public was completely out of line and that we were done. No more second chances, no more excuses. He told her she had crossed way too many boundaries and that we weren't going to let her drag us into her drama anymore. After that call, we blocked her on everything. We had already decided that we were cutting her off, and whatever narrative she tried to spin didn't matter. Eric told our family what happened. And while some relatives tried to guilt us into keeping the peace, most of them understood why we were done. The ones who didn't, well, that was their problem. I know some people think cutting off family is extreme, but this wasn't just one bad moment. Sarah's behavior had been manipulative and toxic for a long time, and that final incident at the grocery store proved that she wasn't going to change. She had no respect for our boundaries and no understanding of how stressful her actions had been for us. I feel angry sometimes, not because I think we made the wrong decision, but because I know Sarah's going to twist this into some tragic story where she's the victim. She'll tell anyone who will listen that we abandoned her or turned the family against her. And I know some people will believe her. I don't care anymore. Eric and I are focusing on our own family now, on our son, on our home, and on creating a peaceful life without all of Sarah's drama. I hope for her sake that she eventually gets the help she clearly needs. But I've realized that her problems aren't ours to fix, and we're finally done letting her drag us down.